I'm often being asked, how much yarn and how much wool will I need for a Peg-Loom rug? I find that a very difficult question to answer. So in today's video, I'm going to be looking at that. Thank you for joining me. My name's Sarah. This is Highland Colours, and I would be so happy if you would subscribe and hit the thumbs up, which helps get this video out. So I have spun this in the last couple of days. It took me 8 hours altogether to spin this yarn. I'll just hold it up there. There's quite a lot of it. There's actually, to be precise, 1.887 kilos or 4 pounds and 2.5 ounces. I have spun it as thickly as my wheel would take. This has been spun on the Ashford Country Spinner. And the thing that makes this a little bit different from a previous video that I did on this subject was that the person who wanted this rug or has commissioned it from me would like it not to be a lock yarn. They want it to be a smooth yarn, smooth-ish yarn. So they don't want sort of tufts of wool sticking out. They just want nice, smooth, but very spongy, because this is going to be for a child's bedroom, sit on a laminate wooden floor and be something nice and spongy that they can sit on and read their books. So that's my commission. And I'm going to be making it on the Peg-Loom here, which is going to be set here at, I've set it at 23 inches of width. So it's not going to be a very big one. I'm not going to exactly say how long it's going to be, but I would think probably we're looking at maybe just under 4 foot, I hope, but I'll see. I don't know how far I'm going to get with this yarn. So giving the weight of it now, and then I'll weigh the rug when it's finished. I've got 72 wraps of yarn here. This is how I measure the yardage on it. I've measured the wrap, and the wrap is 79 on my Niddy Noddy, my big one. And so I've times those and divided it, and I have 154 yards here. It's possible I may need more. I'm noticing, I hope I don't need more. I'm noticing here that one of these skeins is very slightly, it's hard to keep it really, really thick for me because I don't normally spin naturally at that thickness. But I've literally taken chunks of raw fleece, uncarded, just taken them to the wheel, and in it's all gone. And just as it came to my hand, literally, there's a good mix of different colors because some of the fleece was light, some was dark. There was even a few areas of a moorit color. You can see that there, perhaps. And I just spun it all in together, fine, as many colors as I can get. I've plied it fairly tightly. It's not over plied, but I didn't want it under plied because this is going to be on the floor and it needs to be fairly strong. The fleeces were not very soft. I wouldn't want this around my neck. No, they're Shetland, but I think one of them was a ram fleece and the other one was just a bit coarse. Now I have a third fleece. This represents 2 whole fleeces here. I have a third fleece that I brought in, and I'm going to show a little bit of spinning to show how I've done this with that third one, so you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So let's get started. I've just put the leader on and begun spinning here. This is a very thick yarn, as I said before, and all I'm doing is bringing a big chunk of fleece up onto my lap. Now that piece is no good at all because there's too much vegetation in there. So this is just about as rough and basic as you ever get with spinning. Maybe I'll take that whole piece off and start there. Yeah. So In it goes, and I just want to keep these locks that I'm seeing here as flat as possible. Sometimes I'm teasing them out a little bit with my left hand, with my thumb, just to pull them down so that they're not actually sticking up. And then when I've got 2 bobbins filled, I will ply them. The uptake on this wheel isn't great. I can't actually change it any more than I have. If anybody's got any tips on that, please write in. I added an extra layer of leather on this to try and get it to drag more, but it hasn't made any difference. So I need to look into that. I think the e-spinner probably would be better in that respect, but I don't think they have such a big bobbin, and I do like to have the big bobbin. I can get about 750, 800 grams of finished yarn on one bobbin. I think I've even had more than that. So it's a good size. I'm not really aware of what other wheels there are on the market that would spin this sort of yarn like this. I know there are some, but I don't have any experience of any others, so I can't comment. But if anybody has and wants to comment what they have and whether they're happy with it, that would be really useful for the community to know those things. So this is a little bit lumpy and bumpy. If I were spinning the flank wool, it would have a longer staple and be a smoother piece, but I think I've already extracted all the flank wool out of this fleece. I'll have a quick look here in a minute, see if I can find some more of it, because that's ideal for this kind of project. I don't want these second cuts. A lot of dust coming out here, even though this is well washed. I sometimes wonder where these sheep have been grazing. Sometimes there's sand. Okay, so just to show that, I'll keep going with that and then put the 2 bobbins down, one either side. I bought extra bobbins for this. I think it only comes with 1 from Ashford, and then I bought the extra 2. So then I put 1 each side and then ply it back in. There's just a little bit of close-up video in case anybody wants to see. That's the bit with the Mouret colour in it, and you can see it's still quite textured and lumpy, but it's not actually a lock yarn. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think that'll be good. I'm just showing now how I'm warping up this loom. I make the warp threads first of all by just going round my warping peg that came out of my Ashford rigid heddle loom set. And the only reason I'm doing this is to get these all the same length. You could measure them, you could make a jig, you could do it off the back of a chair if you've got a strong chair, and yeah, there's no magical way of doing anything here. A lot of people say to me, oh, well, I don't do it that way, or there's a better way of doing that, and that's fine. I'm just showing the way I do it. So I'm doing about 5 at a time, and then I cut them off the peg. I don't like to do any more than 5 at once because I find they get into a big muddle otherwise. Just cut them off there. Get rid of the rubbish. That's it. So then I just take the 5 and lay them down, and when I want one of them, I'll take it from the fold up here and lift it off. Otherwise you can end up with a big muddle. Sometimes I end up with a muddle anyway. So move that over to the side, and I'm just going to now thread it through. I don't thread it through the whole of the peg, I thread it through the loop in the hole, which I showed in another video. I put those in. It's much quicker to warp, and also it takes any thread that you want to warp with, however thick. See, I've gone and tangled that up there because I wasn't watching. So yeah, I'll just keep working here until I get them all in, and then we'll come back. So I'm just bringing these all down now and getting the knots at the end in roughly the same place as each other. I'm actually just eyeballing this. In a previous video, I've used a sort of big dowel at the end here. I'm going to use that this time just to make sure I get everything equal. You don't have to use one. I think Peg-Loom weaving is very forgiving. Just the nature of the weaving and the way it is, you can get away with quite a lot. It doesn't have to be quite so accurate as weaving on a regular loom. And I only use the dowel at the bottom as a sort of help to keeping everything in order. And that's my preferred way of working. But I know other people don't use that, and that's fine. If you get the results you want, that's good. I think also if you had a warping frame, that would be helpful. If you're making rugs for selling perhaps, and you know, time is money, you want the right size warps on your Peg-Loom, and you want them quickly, I probably would use a warping frame. And what I meant by a sturdy chair or a strong chair is one that isn't going to rock about and move about on the floor. If you're using, you know, the end of a chair or something to warp round, you could do that, but the chair wouldn't need to keep moving, otherwise your warps are all going to be a different length. Anyway, that's my warp now, and I'm going to go and take this through to my studio, set it up and start weaving. So we're all set up and I'm going to start the weaving. I'll just do a little bit of it and then I'll come back to the video again when I've got a bit more done. It's going through this spacing of peg very nicely, so I'm quite hopeful that this will look good. I said in a previous video about numbering your pegs. I've gone over all my numbers again with a new pen just to make sure I can see them well, because it's really easy to cross your pegs, and if you do, then you're crossing your warp, and that is something you really don't want to happen, because you won't be able to push the weft down very well. So this is going really quickly. I'm very happy with it so far. I'll just show one little bit and pushing the pegs down, and then I'll come back when I've done a bit more of it. I've looped the ends of the warps into the dowel at the bottom, as I think you could see there by the video. I've just let it actually hang over the end. I haven't secured it in any way. It's just to keep things in order and make sure everything's roughly at the same tension. And I think you could dispense with that as time goes on. I like to use it. I've clamped these down on the sides of this Peg-Loom to keep it even, and there it's really easy then to make sure your rug is square. You don't want to be making a trapezoidal rug, so it's square to the end of the table, and I've measured the dowel at the end to the end of the table there. And I've also given myself, I would say I've given myself an extra foot of warp than what I want. I learned the hard way on that once when I made it too short. So that'll do for now, and I'll start pulling these up and putting them back into the hole. Ah, there we go. I'll move this up. Right, so as I go, I'll be pushing this down. The first little bit is the trickiest, and then you kind of get into a rhythm. Anyway, I'll leave it there and come back when I've done a bit more. I've just come down the garden here to get some nettles. I don't like nettles in my garden, but I allow them here because we use them for both dye and food. The tops, if they're not covered in insects, are very good as food and used to be used as tea in the UK by people who didn't have the money for ordinary tea, and of course they still are used for tea, but I use them for a khaki green dye on wool. I'll probably strip the leaves off these stalks. I like to cut them rather than ripping them out because I don't actually want to stop them from growing here. When you take the tops out, then new tops grow. It's a lovely day today, and I've noticed that we have a pair of swans here on the river. I don't know if you can see that. I'll just bring the camera down a little further so that you can see the swan. I've just taken the camera down here so that you can see this is almost finished now. I've been working on this just over an hour, so it's gone very quickly. I've finished the weaving now. I've still got to tidy this up. I've got a few ends poking out here. These look a little bit from a distance as though they are locks, but they're not. They're the ends. I'll tidy that one up later. I have put the knots in the end here a good ways down. I just measured them out there and knotted a few of them together, and I'm now going to push all the weft down to meet those knots. I haven't measured this yet to see what the final measurement is, but I want this packed down quite well because I need some weft up at this end, warp up at this end to be able to tie. So that still need to go down quite a few inches here. Where I've got some little locks there, I'm probably going to trim those because we don't really want those in this particular rug. I'll be careful how I trim them. There's still quite a lot of slack to take up here, which is good because I need the warp at the other end still. There we are, there's the warp showing through. That is why we need a longer warp than we think we do when we first put this on, because it's going to pack down and we're going to need some to tie like that. This will still go down quite a bit more. Yeah, that's probably just about there. And then when I take this off, I'll tie these ends and I'll braid them. And I can do further tightening up to make this lay really flat in a minute. But what I'd like to do first of all is to get an approximate measurement, although it's going to change slightly because we're going to even this out. So that is 23 inches in width and that's 39 inches in length. I think it looks balanced. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm just tying the ends off now from the end I took off here where I was weaving. It's surprising how fast the weaving goes on this when the yarn is spun and it's so bulky. I think start to finish, this was just over, I don't know if it was an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, something like that. It was very quick. Now, I'm going to tie those with a double knot in a minute, and then I'll finish them with a braid, but I just want to put an initial knot in there to start with and just see what that looks like. Yes, I like that. So I'm going to go along here and put a double knot on top of each one of these. Make sure they're tight enough. And I'll do the same at the other end. So that's more or less my project done. I still have to braid the ends, which I'll do later, and just trim up some of my stragglers there, but it's essentially finished and I'm very happy with it. It's about an inch thick, I should say. It's very squidgy and thick, you know, which is exactly what I wanted. So this is the yarn that was left over. So I'm just weighing this here now, and it is 540 grams. Let me do that one more time. Just make sure. Yeah, 540 grams, which means that this took 1,347 grams of yarn, 1.3 kilos roughly. So if I had woven it a couple inches wider and a few inches longer, it probably would have taken all of that. Let's just weigh that. Yes, 1.355. So that's the cotton warp as well being weighed. So if anybody's interested in how much yarn it takes to make one of these, perhaps that will give you an idea. And most fleeces are a kilo or more, thereabouts. The Shetland fleeces, of course, are smaller. So this took 2 fleeces to make. But if you had anything else like a Leicester long wool or a Cheviot or something, you would get one of these out of 1 fleece without any problem, I think. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it the thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.